All right, let's dive into the economic future of Papua New Guinea. This is a country that's truly at a crossroads. The year 2026 is shaping up to be a make or break moment. We're talking about a series of choices that could either launch it into a whole new era of prosperity or, well, let a massive opportunity slip through its fingers. So let's break down exactly what's at stake here. Okay, so let's start with a baseline number, 4.6%. That's the real GDP growth forecasters are projecting for Papua New Guinea in 2026. Now, to put that in perspective for you, a number like that, it doesn't just look good, it would make PNG one of the fastest growing economies in the entire region. The raw potential here is, well, it's pretty undeniable. And that right there is the big question, isn't it? It's the central question of this whole explainer. Because look, a forecast is just a number on a page. Reality, so much more complex. So what are the forces that could actually supercharge this growth? And on the flip side, what are the major headwinds that could blow this whole thing completely off course? That's the tension we're going to dig into. So, to figure out where Papua New Guinea is heading, we got to first understand what's powering its economy right now. And the answer, really, is this incredibly rich and resilient resource engine. I mean, this has been the foundation of the country for decades. Just look at this list. The diversity of Papua New Guinea's natural wealth is just staggering. We're talking about commodities making up more than 90% of the country's exports. You've got everything from precious metals like gold and copper to the big energy players like LNG and oil. And that's not all. The agricultural sector is a total powerhouse, with stuff like coffee, cocoa, and palm oil being huge exports on the global stage. And the sheer scale of this resource engine is immense. I mean, just look at these trade figures from late 2025. Exports are more than triple the value of imports. That creates this massive trade surplus. We're talking over 10 billion Kina. And listen, that's not just some abstract number on a spreadsheet. That is the financial bedrock that provides stability to the entire economy. So beyond just that trade balance, the bigger picture actually looks really solid. The country's international reserves, super healthy. They've got enough to cover more than 7 months of imports, which is a fantastic buffer against any external shocks. And for businesses on the ground, the foreign exchange situation has gotten so much better, clearing out a lot of those backlogs that used to cause major headaches. So yeah, the economic foundation is definitely strong. Okay, but a strong foundation doesn't mean it's going to be a smooth ride, right? Every great growth story has some conflict, some drama, and for Papua New Guinea, that conflict comes in the form of three major headwinds. These are significant, very real risks that everyone, from leaders to businesses, has to navigate very, very carefully. All right, risk number one. This one is probably the most visceral. It's climate change. As a Pacific Island nation, Papua New Guinea is extremely vulnerable to severe weather. But there's one threat that really stands out: agricultural drought. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it all. For the vast, vast majority of the people there, farming isn't just a job, it's how they live. It's their entire way of life. So when a drought hits, it's not just a setback, it devastates staple crops like sweet potato. And that leads directly to food shortages and incredible economic hardship. This isn't some theoretical risk we're talking about. For many people, it's existential. But here's where things get interesting. To fight this, they're pioneering a really innovative strategy called anticipatory action. So instead of just waiting for a crisis to hit and then reacting, the whole idea is to use forecasting and data to act before a drought actually takes hold. You get resources and support out to communities when it matters most. It's a huge shift from just reactive aid to proactive resilience. Honestly, it's a real innovation in how you manage risk. Okay, on to the next major risk. This one is all financial. It's about the value of Papua New Guinea's currency, the Kina. And let's just say it's been on a bit of a roller coaster. Yeah, these numbers from 2025, they tell a pretty clear story. The Bank of Papua New Guinea has been using this policy called a crawling peg, which is basically a slow, managed devaluation of the currency. As you can see, that's led to a big drop in the Kina's value against the major world currencies. Now, that might help exporters, sure, but it puts a ton of pressure on the cost of anything being imported, and that uses everybody, businesses and regular consumers alike. And that brings us to our final headwind. This one plays out on the global stage. It's all about navigating the super complex rules of the international financial system, especially when you're talking about compliance and, your reputation. So what on earth is a gray listing? Well, the FATF, that's the Financial Action Task Force, basically a global watchdog for financial crime, they've spotted some gaps in Papua New Guinea's anti-money laundering controls. This makes things tougher, right? It increases compliance costs for banks and can create some reputational risk. But the government isn't just sitting back. They've responded with their own kind of policy innovation, a big, comprehensive 18-point action plan to fix these issues and get off that list. All right, we've talked about the strong foundation. We've talked about the serious risks. Now, let's get to the single biggest factor in this entire story. The one potential game changer that could completely rewrite Papua New Guinea's economic future, and that is the Papua LNG project. Just look at that number, 14 billion with a B US dollars. That is the estimated investment for this massive liquefied natural gas project led by Total Energies. A number that big, it has the power to fundamentally transform an entire national economy. It's just huge. So what this really sets up are two completely different paths forward for Papua New Guinea's economy. It's like two parallel universes. In one, you have the baseline scenario, solid, steady, but moderate growth. In the other, you have a totally supercharged trajectory. That's what happens if this Papua LNG project gets the final green light. The difference between those two paths, it's literally night and day. And this chart just makes that difference crystal clear. The project could take that solid 4% baseline and nearly double it, pushing it to somewhere between 6 and 8% during its peak years. An economic leap of that size is a rare, once-in-a-generation kind of opportunity. And the way this project would impact the economy is really interesting. It's expected to come in two distinct waves. First up, you get a massive construction surge, a huge short-term boost while everything's being built, which spills over into all sorts of local industries. Then, once the gas starts flowing, you get a second long-term lift to the economy from all the new exports. It's this incredibly powerful one-two punch for growth. So, okay, on one hand, you have this massive potential upside from the LNG project. On the other, you have these very serious headwinds: climate, currency, compliance. So that brings us to the verdict. What does this all mean for Papua New Guinea as it tries to forge its path forward? Because here's the thing, when you really boil it down, the country's future in 2026 isn't really about one single project. It's about a choice. It's about the choices the nation makes right now. And these are decisions that are going to have consequences for decades to come. So the real test, the real challenge, isn't just about getting the LNG investment over the line. It's about using the momentum from that potential boom to build something that lasts, something more sustainable. We're talking about diversifying the economy, really leaning into innovative strategies like that anticipatory action we mentioned, and strengthening the institutions you need to manage all those currency and compliance risks. That is the grand challenge. And so that leaves us with this one big question. It really wraps up this whole story of promise in peril, doesn't it? The opportunity is absolutely immense, but the risks, they are very, very real. The path that Papua New Guinea chooses in 2026 is going to decide whether this moment becomes a launchpad for lasting prosperity for everyone, or just another big chance that was missed. And you can be sure the world will be watching.